STPS, the LGBTQ channel that discusses science, theology, philosophy, and spirituality. Reason why we're studying those things, LGBTQ persons also have understanding. They are also spiritual beings. They are also philosophical beings. They are also theological beings. And we are also scientific beings. We can understand science. So no more again are we going to feel downtrodden and bad that because I'm LGBTQ, I cannot understand God. Because I am LGBTQ, I cannot understand science. Because I'm LGBTQ, I cannot talk philosophy. Because I'm LGBTQ, I cannot talk spirituality or be spiritual. You can, and you are. And you should accept this is why we have this channel. Of course, we have our secular channel, Rex Arthur, but this one is our religious channel and spiritual channel for LGBTQ persons that are spiritual and religious. And you're very much welcome. So today, we're gonna do what we've been always I've been doing ever since I came back to spirituality or religion or relationship with God, because some people tell you that no, we shouldn't in the most Pentecostal and evangelical circles, they don't like using the word religion because religion means you have no relationship with God. It's a bit distant. But for me, I believe so. What they believe in what is called relationship with God. Like they always ask you when they go for evangelism, do you have a relationship with God? Do you talk to God? And I tell them, yes, I do. Even though I'm gay, I do have a relationship with God. I tell God many things. And I tell people that I even tell God what I want to do with my body. Because you have to understand, in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve were naked, just like the tribes in Africa were naked. They never used to wear clothes. So no wonder science says that the first humans or the Homo sapiens came from Africa. And when you see there are some tribes in Africa, they still walk naked. Very few of them, but they still walk naked. That is a sign that they were actually that these are Adam and Eve tribes, people who they don't care about their nakedness, and they were naked and not ashamed. And God was walking with them. Now the question is, was God naked when he was walking in the garden? Was God naked? That's what we need to ask ourselves. And if he was not naked, why was he not naked? And what was he wearing when he was walking in the garden with them and came to visit them? You see, these are the questions we need to ask ourselves. That if God wears clothes, why does he wear clothes? And why did he create man and woman naked? Michelangelo painted God naked. So most likely God is naked. In the Bible again, Moses, when he saw God, he said, "Let me see your back parts," and God showed him his back parts. And what is in the back is he showed him his buttocks. Yeah, he said, "You can't see my face. I'll just show you my back." So if God doesn't wear clothes, then he was walking naked, and Moses saw a naked God, his back. And that one gives me consolation as a gay man because we like the backs of our fellow men. So who knows? It's beautiful. So what I'm trying to say is, um, God knows you even when you're naked. Yes. Remember Saul, when he prophesied when he even stripped naked. The Holy Spirit came upon him and he was prophesying until he removed all his clothes and lay on the ground naked, butt naked. David danced in public during the day, and his clothes came out and he was naked. Naked. So these people who really fight pornography, they have to even fight the Bible, because the Bible is very pornographic. Adam and Eve naked, God is naked. Moses just saw the back part of God, and we don't know whether he had clothes. And then King Saul was naked, King David was naked. When the Israelites went to captivity, they were taken back naked. Even Isaiah explains, he describes them walking naked as a punishment, because slaves were not, they were never given clothes. There are some people, when you were enslaved, even having clothes was a luxury. So they were naked when they went to captivity. I'll show you that one time, not today. What I'm just trying to say is that God knows you even when you're naked, so don't fear. He knows everything you do. Even when you want to you have a sexual fantasy, he knows it. He knows what you want. So take it easy. He doesn't hate you for having sexual thoughts. Because if we are created in the image of God, it means God also has sexual desires. That's why he loves us. You see, God loves us, and we are able to love because we are created in his image. He is also a lover, much as we are a lover. If God was not a lover, then he cannot create lovers. But because we are lovers, it means our creator is also a lover. It's like AI. AI was made by, okay, it's by human effort, but it's a very, in fact, AI, come to think of it, is very spiritual, in the sense that it is mathematics of the highest end. Do you know nobody knows the last number in mathematics? And if you create a computer that can get to that number before a human being, that computer is greater than a human being, because it can calculate outcomes. That is mind boggling. Mind boggling. Actually, you can even calculate how long. Do you know they've said the earth is 4 billion years old, roughly 4 billion years old? A computer, a supercomputer, can count those 4 billion years and go back. So what does that mean? That supercomputer can even tell us, when the earth began, when the world came to being. It's very beautiful. I know I'm not. This is Rema word. You know, Rema means you just speak. So I'm going to sit down and digest AI and its relationship to philosophy and spirituality, because I smell a rat. It's a very big rat I'm smelling, and it's beautiful because, as I said, time is God. And what is time? Time is mathematically measured. It's mathematically measured, meaning it's numbers. And if we are able to calculate when the world began, then we have known the world. That's why even scientists today, like NASA and ESA, they are able to tell you when the sun is going to die. They say the sun has 1 billion years to go. And it's true, because the sun is a star. Yes, it is a star. So, in short, if the sun will, does it mean the world will die? And if the world dies, does that mean that the world is ending in the next 1 billion years? It could be true that the world will end when the sun dies, because the sun is the center of the solar system, which the earth lives, survives on. As I said in my secular YouTube channel, we are cosmological beings because the sun important part in our lives. That's why now there's a climate change meeting in Poland this week. Very important. It's an emergency meeting. Why is it an emergency meeting? We are cosmological. We are affected by the sun. And our activities on Earth have been detrimental to the status of the Earth, because you have to understand the Earth and the sun. The sun is not necessarily a friend of the Earth, or even if it's a friend of the Earth, it can also be an enemy. It's just like your friend. Your friend can backstab you much as they can love you. Your phone, your smartphone, helps you to do a lot of things much as it can eavesdrop on you. You see? So the sun is very helpful to the earth much as it's very destructive to the earth. Look what happened in California, all those fires. It that someone just went to light the fire because it needs sticks that are dry and a very hot sun. Sticks that are dry and a very hot sun. As I told you, black people are black because of the sun. Their ancestors developed melanin that was used as a shield against the ultraviolet rays of the sun. So what does this mean? The first humans may not have necessarily been very black. They may have been light skinned or red skinned. Yes, we do not know the color. Let's just say we do not know the color of the first humans. But as time went on and as they lived on the earth, they some of them remained in Africa, and in remaining in Africa, you are being exposed to a lot of ultraviolet rays. So the body creates melanin. You must know your body is still creative. It's still creating things right now as we speak. Every time you, like when you masturbate and all of these things, and you have sex and you release, and women, they're always releasing eggs. What does this mean? It means that your body is creating, it's manufacturing. So what happened when the sun was so much for those who remained in Africa? Their bodies had to come up with an idea to survive in Africa, and one way was to create melanocytes. And these were cells that darkened the skin. You know, they toughened the skin because the sun was hitting the skin so much. It could be that melanocytes are actually a creation of the sun in interaction with the human body, and then the human body. Then the humans who left Africa to go to Asia and Europe, they were not as melanated because they were not exposed to the sun. So they have little melanin in their body, and some even have this absence of melanin. So those that could be one of the reasons why there's black skin and all of that. So even today, what we want to discuss is, so basically what I've just said is that we are cosmological. We are controlled by the cosmos. And sometimes it is now science that is realizing the importance of the climate. What is climate? It includes the sun, it includes the moon, but mostly the sun and the moon and the wind and the rain and the temperature. Everything that is in the earth, ecological elements, they affect who you are. So some of us, we are dark like this because of where we live. So we are slaves to the ecology. We are slaves to the cosmos. Because you live in a very sunny place, you will get dark whether you like it or not. And you'll have to fight it using other chemicals. Like if you want to lighten yourself to look lighter, you will go and get the chemicals. Because the sun is also a chemical body. It's releasing ultraviolet rays. And the sun also releases a chemical called vitamin D. You see, those are chemicals, and those chemicals we eat them. So you find in Africa, the reason why Africans tend to be very strong body wise is because of vitamin D. The bones, vitamin D is very good for the bones, and it makes the bones strong. So when look at the guys who live in the northern hemisphere, they suffer from multiple sclerosis. That's a bone disease. Come to Africa, very few people have MS because the sun is so much and they have a lot of vitamin D in their system. So when you want to run away, if you don't want to have MS, come and live in Africa. Your bones will be strong. Like there was a very interesting thing. Someone was making fun, sadly, of an English football player. His grandfather was in Nigeria. And there's something nice about this English player. First of all, he's very handsome and big, nicely big. He actually has he has an African body. So the old man in England wrote in the article that called him an ape because his grandfather was in Nigeria. And I think the father was born in Nigeria and then they went to England after Nigeria got independence. And then he gave birth to, he sired this son. So he said, you know, this guy is just an ape, or he's because the grandfather was in Nigeria, I think, and it was seen as racist. But when I came to think of it, I said, actually, it's not that he's an ape, it's that this guy has an African body, but he's a white man. And then when I read that the grandfather was actually lived in Nigeria, if not was even born there. And as I've told you, what the sun does to the human body, it gives you strong bones, whether you're black or white. So imagine this British white man is in Nigeria, eating Nigerian food and being exposed to the African sun that comes twice a year. And for a weird thing, Nigeria is also on the Greenwich Meridian, meaning the same time zone with UK, partly. Now, just imagine, what do you think happened to that white man, his body, and his Y chromosomes? You see, 80% his sons and his daughters will look like Africans because he is living in the same environment as Africans. And that's why he ends up being as big. Yes. And that's why the grandson, looks very muscular for a Briton. Very muscular, as I told you, very handsome. Like the African bodies are very nice. And it could be that the vitamin D that the grandfather absorbed for all those years he lived in Nigeria was passed down to his son, who passed down to his son. And that's what happened. So basically, the sun is the way he is because of the sun. Yes, the sun, the star. So, and he's a white guy, he's nowhere near black. So that's the beauty. So what am I trying to say? And then now look at black people who live in the northern hemisphere. Some of them become so light skinned, you wonder whether are they half caste, and you'll find they're not half caste. Yes. Reason being, they are living in the northern hemisphere where they see the sun in a short time. I mean, the sun only appears once, and that's in the summer. And the rest of the time it doesn't come back again. But in Africa, the sun appears twice. So you can do that experiment and find the white people who have lived in Africa may tend to have strong bones. Look at the rugby players in South Africa who happen to be white. Very big. And you may think they are taking supplements, but they live in Africa that is building them up. And then you could also do an experiment. Let white people live in the equatorial belt and see what happens in a span of 100 years. Whether they will have children that are big because of eating a lot of vitamin D. That's a lot of the sun. Yeah. So it's very interesting. So what am I trying to say? We are cosmological beings. That's why climate change means even your body will change. Yes. That's why it's a very important thing. And I can even postulate that climate change even affects mental health. It affects everything because the sun is so important in the life of the world, that and whatever you're doing in the world is affected by the sun. Whatever you're doing in the world is affected by the moon. Because if the moon doesn't do its satellite job very well, there will be no tides in the sea. Yes, it's very beautiful. I don't know. I'll talk about cosmology. I've already started reading about cosmology. And the more I'm reading about it, the more I'm beginning to know we are actually cosmological beings. And we are controlled by the sun. Yes, that's why climate change is a very serious issue. Because if we can't solve it, we are doomed. The sun will do what it wants to do to us. Because if the ozone layer is destroyed, it means the ultraviolet rays will be more. And these ultraviolet rays are not only detrimental to humankind, they're even detrimental to plants, they're detrimental to the sea. Everything on earth that is exposed to the sunlight is affected. Yeah, so even buildings. Have you seen buildings that can smolder because of the sun? Because of the material you use to build them? Beautiful. It's come to think of it, we are really in a world where it's beyond our control. We don't control it. It's also controlled by the stars, which like animals don't even give a damn. They're just shining. The sun is just shining. It has, and at night the sun doesn't switch off. It's still shining. It's just that the earth is not facing where the sun is shining. So just think about how long the sun has been shining. Billions of years. Billions. Can you count billions of years? You can't. I always tell people in Africa that the reason why corruption cases don't really shake Africans is because they have never held that money. If you've never held $1 million, if you never hold $1 million, when someone tells you, I have just lost $1 million, they will look at you. They don't know what it means. So the best way to make him understand, give him $1 million, let him do something with it, then let it get lost. He will understand, and they will riot. They will go and revolt. They will say money is lost. Yes, because people don't know how much $1 million is because they have never held it, so they can't fathom. It's like you're talking Greek to them. But in the West, they know money. So when they hear that $1 million was stolen in the government ministry, they will sack that person immediately. The person even resigns. That's what happened in South Korea and in other Western countries. Okay, guys, that was what you call a Rema word mixed with science and religion. Now we want to start another series called Genetics and Mitochondrics. And genetics and mitochondrics is about the Y chromosome. Genetics means the Y chromosome, whereby the man's sperm has a Y and produces men or boys or males. And then mitochondrics is a new term I've coined to mean the mitochondria that the mothers give to their children, be it a boy or a girl. Now, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because when I came back to faith and religion, I've come back consciously. I've not come back the way I was in the past. In the past, I was a bit focused just on faith, and then I didn't really mix faith with science. I used to see science should be antagonistic against religion. Then I went to atheism and I became fully scientific. And then now I'm back to faith, but I'm back with science. Because so now when I read the Bible, it's so exciting. It's so exciting because I'm now reading in scientific terms. And so today we're going to do a few readings about the sciences, and the science we're going to look at today is genetics and mitochondrics. Now, mitochondria is an organelle that energizes the cells in the body. Every cell in the body has mitochondria. And mitochondria's job is to keep that cell busy. And that mitochondria comes from your mother. It comes from your mother. That's the organelle. It's found in every cell and it energizes the cell. It gives the cell energy to work. Because cells work. The red blood cells have their job. White blood cells have their job. Spermatozoa, the sperms, have their job. The egg, oocyte, has its job. All of these they have, and all these cells, the brain cells, they have it, and they have mitochondria. Beautiful, beautiful. So just know your mother is everywhere. Is everywhere where you have a cell. She's there. She's in it, in the form of the mitochondria. She's there. And then your father is in the sex system, your sexual organ system. So if you're a man, you have the Y chromosome from your father. And that's what it makes you have the sexual features. And in your testosterone and the sperms, if you're a man, they will have the Y chromosome of your father and also the X chromosome from your father. Because your father has both X and Y. He is a man and a woman. Yes. That's why I said we are all intersex. Because a man has this chromosome that can make a man and a chromosome that can make a woman. So men are both male and female, intersexual. And even women are intersexual because they have testosterone, which is a male hormone, and they have estrogen. Okay, so now with that short science lesson, I was thinking about it now when I was going through Jacob's story. And Jacob is the father of Israel because his name was changed to Israel. But he did something interesting. He loved Rachel and he wanted to marry Rachel. But his uncle, because remember, when he left home, the mother told him, get your blessings. After you get your blessings, run to my brother, and you can go and get a wife from there. So the way Jacob left home was very bad, especially with his brother Esau. They didn't see eye to eye. Because Esau was supposed to get the blessing that Jacob got. So for what does that mean? Edom, for those of you who follow Black Americans, they're very, very, very much on the Edom theology and Israel theology. I just laugh when I read through. Because Jacob and Esau were twins. Yes, they were twins. So what does this mean? They shared a Y chromosome. Either they shared a Y chromosome or they shared an egg. But the weird thing about these twins, they were not identical because one twin was hairy and red-haired, and the other twin was smooth, and that's Jacob. Jacob was the smooth one, Esau was the hairy one at birth. And even how they were born, it was a very weird birth because Jacob held the heel of Esau. And so the midwives even got scared and said, this is going to be a very interesting family. And indeed it happened that way. So most of the times twins are identical. Look at the Mori sisters. They look alike. But for this case of Jacob and Esau, they were different. So they were different but the same sex. Now, so what am I trying to say? Isaac's Y chromosome went to could be the Jacob and Esau. And therefore, Jacob and Esau have the same Y chromosome. So what I'm trying to say is to my black American brothers who are in the Edom theology, or they really study it that strongly. Guess what? Edom has the same Y chromosome, like could have the same Y chromosome like Jacob, Israel. So just know that Edom and Israel are brothers. So for them, some of them, they believe the whites, the white Jews or whites who have the same chromosome as Jacob, they came from Edom. So sometimes I find it a bit racist, but it's their view and they have done their, some of them have done their research. It's okay. I will deal with it when I get there. But I'm just trying to tell you that contrary to belief, people believe that Edom or Esau was different from Jacob. No, they were twins. So that means their genetic makeup was the same. Only that one had a recessive, meaning he had a lot of hair, and the other one didn't have a lot of hair. Now, then this Jacob went to do something very interesting. Advice from the mother. The mother told him to go and get a wife at her brother's place. So what does this tell you about the ancient world? They were very endogamous. They married within the family. So Jacob married his cousins. Rachel and Leah were Jacob's cousins. He went to marry them. Now, when he saw Rachel, he liked Rachel so much. She was beautiful. And he told Laban, Uncle Laban, Uncle, you have a very beautiful daughter. I want to have her. And Uncle Laban was very crafty. And he said, you know what? Work for 7 years, then I'll give Rachel to you. So he worked for 7 years. After the 7 years, Uncle Laban did a very funny trick. The marriage took place at night. And in Israeli culture, it's what you have in the Middle East. They cover themselves. So you only get to see the lady when she has unveiled, and that's when you have sex with them. When you're not having sex, they cover. So he was so happy, I've got Rachel. So when he opened the veil and had sex, in fact, we could have read it, but I don't have the time to do that. We'll need to read that sex scene that Jacob had. Maybe we can let's try and get it. Yes. And Jacob said unto Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. You see, marriage is sex. And Jacob said unto Laban, okay, I've said that. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to him in unto her. And Laban gave unto his daughter Leah Zilpah his maid for a handmaid. And it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this that thou hast done unto me? Did not I serve with thee for Rachel? Wherefore then hast thou beguiled me? And Laban said, it must not be so done in our country, to give the younger before the firstborn. Fulfill her week, and will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years. And Jacob did so, and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel also, daughter to wife also. Rachel his daughter to wife also. So I like the word in Israel, 7 years is 1 week. That's a beautiful thing about time in the Israel calendar. The 7 years is 1 week. So Jacob worked for 7 years, which was 1 week for Leah, for Rachel. He thought it was Rachel. Then the wedding took place in the evening. As I've told you, what happens in the if you've watched Middle Eastern movies, you could go and even watch porn. I mean, be free. And the porn, if you've really seen Middle Eastern porn, they can even have sex without removing clothes. Yes, very true. They just, because all they do, what matters is the reproductive part for them in the Middle Eastern sexual style. They are not really bothered about breasts and no, no, no. They are bothered about that place. So what may have happened is Jacob, when he slept with Leah, Leah had covered everything cleverly, because even Leah may have known that Jacob wanted Rachel. So don't open, don't touch my face. I'm here for you. And so opened, and Jacob slept with Leah. Then when the morning came, Jacob realizes it is Leah. Behold, it was Leah. It wasn't Rachel. And he was so angry, he went to see Laban, his uncle, and told him, I thought I had Rachel. What is this? That why have you cheated me? And he said, no. The custom is you first go with the firstborn. We can't give you the young one before the firstborn goes. So if you want the young one, you have to work for another week, meaning another 7 years. And he worked for another 7 years to get Rachel. Now, what I'm trying to bring out is now we're going to go through the story. There's another aspect of the story that is very important. Laban gave his daughter a girl, a maid, a slave. So there is a culture in Israel, or not, this was not Israel, by the way, this was Syria. There was no Israel at this time. So these guys, it's like a culture that when you get married to a man, you need a handmaid. She's the one to take care of you. And most of the times, these handmaids were like lesbians. What I mean by lesbians, they were suffrages. In case the woman can't give birth, this handmaid would sleep with the husband so that she can give children for the woman. And that's what we're trying to study. That though it was a culture, scientifically, there were two different mitochondria in the tent of Jacob at that time when he married Leah. Then Rachel also came with her maid. So there was one Y chromosome and 4 mitochondria. Now, to be more precise, there was one Y chromosome, but there were 3 mitochondria. What do I mean by 3 mitochondria? Leah is the sister of Rachel. So that means they share the same mitochondria. So that was one mitochondria 1. Then the maid of Leah, who was called the name of Leah's maid. Let's get it again. I know it, but I want to be clear about it. Zilpah. Zilpah had her own mitochondria. She was not a sister of Leah or Rachel. She was just a slave girl. So she came with her own mitochondria. Then Rachel came with her maid called Bilhah. And Bilhah also came with her own mitochondria because she's not the sister of Rachel or Leah. And neither are we told she's the sister of Zilpah. So these were slave girls that were in Syria that worked for the women who got married to Jacob. And as I told you, the reason why women had slaves was to sire, was to help sire, to carry the seed of the husband in case the woman is barren. Now let's read on. So, and Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah his handmaid to be a maid. And he went in also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years. And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Now the Lord saw something. And that's what I was telling you in the first beginning of the video. God knows everything about you. Even your nakedness and sex, what you have, whom you have sex with, whom you want to sleep with, he knows. So don't panic. You know, these guys, they just did a research that the Bible Belt, they watch pornography like nothing. And they are yet Bible thumpers that you should not be watching pornography. And I said, yeah, God is seeing them and he's very happy. He knows them. You know, he's just looking at, it's the usual. I know you're going to go to Pornhub and watch what you want. Yes, it's normal. It's not bad. And Christians are just hard on themselves for nothing. Now, Rachel, so what happened is the Lord saw. He saw hatred. But it's not hatred. Even the Lord was hard on Jacob. I'm sure if Jacob is with him, he's telling him, man, I told you I liked Rachel. Why did you let Laban lie? So the Lord, he also was cunning. The Lord was also cunning. And he made Leah to be fruitful and have babies in spite of her ugliness, according to Jacob. Because to Jacob, she was ugly. To him, he liked Rachel. And then Rachel was barren. Imagine now making the beautiful one barren. Look at how Jacob went through hell. Or he went through trouble. You know, these days we don't have hell. There's no hell. We are all going to heaven. So we are doing away that word of hell. Now, and Leah conceived and bare a son and called his name Reuben. So I want us to go through the children of Jacob that had the mitochondria of Leah. So Reuben is the first one who carried Leah's mitochondria. Now, the second son of Leah is Simeon. So Simeon also carried the mitochondria of Leah, much as he carried the Y chromosome of Jacob. All of these boys carried Jacob's Y. So when you study Jews, because these names I'm giving you are the tribes of Israel, they are the ones that make the Jewish nation. So when it comes to Jewish men, they share one Y chromosome that is from Jacob, from these 12 sons of Israel. But mitochondria, when it comes to knowing whether the mother is Jewish, they had very many mothers. So we are going to look at the tribes that belonged to Leah and therefore had Leah's mitochondria. So Reuben, Simeon, another son, Levi, and Judah. So the Levi, Judah, Simeon, and Reuben had the mitochondria of Leah. Okay, let's continue. Now Rachel was angry that she could not give birth. And she even told Jacob, give me children or I die. So what do we learn from here? Rachel was blaming Jacob that you're not giving me, your seed is bad. But what Rachel didn't know, she was barren. That was the thing. And why you could tell Rachel was barren, Leah was giving birth. But Rachel was not. So mathematically, it means there's something wrong with Rachel. There's nothing wrong with Jacob. If it was that Jacob was entering Leah and nothing was happening, no children, and then he sleeps with Rachel and nothing was happening, then the problem is with Jacob, not with the women. But Jacob was entering Leah and she was getting children and Rachel was not. So question mark was on Rachel. And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel. He got angry when Rachel demanded children. Give me children or I die. And he said, am I in God's place instead, who has withheld from thee the fruit of the womb? And then Rachel said, okay, behold, my maid Bilhah, go into her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her. Beautiful, beautiful statement from Rachel. And this happens in Africa. That's why many tribes in Africa are actually related to Israel. That's the reality. Because in Africa, you have women who marry women so that they can have children for them. So Rachel was married to Bilhah. And so she gave Bilhah, her handmaid, to wife. So you see, she's like a mother or a father giving her daughter to get a child from that union. And Jacob went in unto her, and Bilhah conceived and bare Jacob a son. And what was the name of the son? Dan. But Dan is not carrying the mitochondria of Rachel. He is carrying the mitochondria of Bilhah. So now we have another group, the second group, Bilhah group. Bilhah gave Jacob Dan. Then Bilhah conceived again, and she gave another son called Naphtali. So Naphtali and Dan carry the mitochondria of Bilhah. Then Leah told Zilpah, go to Jacob. I need children. So Jacob slept with Zilpah, and Zilpah got Gad. Zilpah got Gad and who? And a second son called Asher. So Zilpah mitochondria gave Jacob two sons. Bilhah gave Jacob two sons, that is Dan and Naphtali. And then Leah had already given Jacob Reuben, Simeon, Levi or Levi, and Judah. So we have now seen Leah's mitochondria, we have seen Bilhah's mitochondria, and we have seen Zilpah's mitochondria. Good. Let's go on. Okay, Reuben, then we know Reuben slept with the maids and the father was angry. And he went in, so we're not going to read that story. Now, Leah conceived again, and she gave birth to another son called Zebulun. And then she bare a daughter called Dinah. So Dinah carries the mitochondria of Leah. And then finally, God remembered Rachel, and he said, let her give birth. So he gave Rachel Joseph, and then later on, after that, we get Benjamin. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, there's somebody missing. We'll count again. There's a kid we have missed. Oh, Issachar. So Leah also had Issachar. So Leah had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Leah had 6 sons and 1 daughter. So 7 children. Rachel had 2 children. Bilhah had 2 children. And Zilpah had 2 children. Now, we have come to the end of the video. This is part 1. We won't talk much because we want to connect it with the science of today. Um, so the tribes of Israel are 12, of 12 men, 12 Y chromosomes, which are one. It is 12 men, but the Y chromosome is one. Unless if we study the Y chromosome and maybe find, because mutations also happen. So who knows, there may have been a mutation. And I'm still going to study about the mutations about Y chromosome. So in the tribes of Israel, 6 tribes of Israel carry the mitochondria of Leah. 6 tribes of Israel. These are the tribes that carry Leah's mitochondria. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Zebulun, and Issachar. These are the tribes of Israel that carry Leah's mitochondria. That means even Jesus Christ carries Leah's mitochondria, even though it may have gone through mutation because of thousands of years of generations passing. And because the Levites, Moses and Jesus share the same mitochondria, because Moses is from the tribe of Levi and Jesus is the tribe of Judah. David is also the tribe of Judah. And mutations, so it was more or less the same. So basically, Moses and David are brothers, mitochondrially. You have to play around with English. Mitochondrially, really, they are the same because they came from Leah. Leah's the mother, the matrilineal line is from Leah. So the tribes of Israel that come from Leah, men, through the men, are 6. And then if you take through the women, mitochondria, like now if those men have daughters, and then plus Dinah, who had children with, got married again in Shechem, then those are 7. Seven children carried Leah's mitochondria, and 6 boys carried it. Good. Now, the second mitochondria is Bilhah. Okay, let's leave Bilhah and Zilpah. Let's go to Rachel. Rachel is a sister of Leah. So 100% she has the same mitochondria as Leah. So that means the tribe of Joseph, and that means, yes, of which there was no tribe of Joseph, because when you come to the tribe of Joseph, Joseph married an African called Asenath. So when he married a woman, this woman, Asenath, brought an African mitochondria to Israel, and or an Egyptian mitochondria to Israel. So what does this mean? That the children of Joseph were more black or Egyptian or African than they were Hebrew. Though I told you we cannot even talk about colors now because we don't know if even Hebrews could be light skinned like the Arabs and some Africans, which they are. Because genetically speaking, Arabs and Africans there are many Arabs share the same genetic group with black Africans. So basically, the color of Arabs, you can find it in Africa. In black Africa, Congo, you'll find it, they share. It's beautiful. And so what I'm trying to say is, these people we're talking about, we are not necessarily talking about Caucasians. Yes, we may not be talking about Caucasians. Caucasian Jews are late Jews because these are Jews who left Israel and went to Europe and mixed with Europeans, Caucasians. The Caucasus Mountains are in Europe, they are not in Africa. So, what does this mean? The first Jews are actually more African than Caucasian. Most of the Jews who, like the ones who died in Europe during the Nazi time, those ones were Caucasian, and they are still Jews. Yes, they are still Jews. So a white Jew is still a Jew, just as a black Jew is still a Jew. Now, so what am I trying to say? Joseph, when Joseph married Asenath, they had twins again. And a very interesting trend. Are you seeing the twin genetics? That if your grandfather had twins, 80% you're going to have twins as a man. So Joseph still carried the chromosome to produce the ability to produce twins. And if I'm very sure, let me be clear about that. I may be wrong. Let's go quickly to when Joseph had children. Let's be very clear about when Joseph had children. Okay. Okay, so we can see Joseph. We can see the story of Joseph. He had two sons called Manasseh and Ephraim. But I want to get the place where Joseph married Asenath. In that I always mark my Bibles and I read, but this one is a new one, having the markings very clearly. So basically, whether they were twins or not, the fact is they were boys. And these boys, we are looking at the mitochondrics, not the genetics. The genetics is what the father gives. And he only gives it when the boys are Y. But we look at the mitochondrics. The mitochondrics is that Ephraim and Manasseh carried Egyptian mitochondria. So we want to finish the video looking at the tribes of Israel. The tribe of Israel, as I told you, Benjamin is the only tribe from Rachel that carried Leah's mitochondria, because Rachel and Leah were sisters. So it's only the Benjamite tribe, the tribe of Benjamin, that is related to the tribe of Judah and to the tribe of Levi. So Benjamites are related mitochondrially to Leah, even though the mother was Rachel. Reason, Rachel is the sister of Leah, so they share the same mitochondria. But Joseph is not a tribe in Israel. Joseph's sons were a tribe in Israel, Manasseh and Ephraim. But his wife was not an Israelite per se. She was an Egyptian, and most likely, I don't know, maybe mitochondria, she was an L, L1, L2. You know, the black Africans are Ls. Or she may have been M or N, we don't know. I haven't gone deep into that. But nonetheless, she was an Egyptian. So the tribe of Manasseh and Ephraim are actually Egyptian tribes in the nation of Israel, before Solomon married the Ethiopian queen. So very African, black African, even before Solomon. So that's what you need to understand. So there are tribes in Israel, or there are Jews that carry the Egyptian mitochondria, the African mitochondria. Good. So we said Benjamin. So what do? Benjamin is a child of Leah, mitochondrially, because Leah was the sister of Rachel. But so now we've got one group. So the first group is a Leah Rachel mitochondria. The second mitochondria is the Bilha mitochondria. So how many tribes belong to the Bilha mitochondria? Two tribes. We have said 7 tribes belong to the Leah Rachel mitochondria. That includes Benjamin. Then 2 tribes belong to the Bilha mitochondria. That is Dan and Naphtali. So genetics, Dan and Naphtali belong to a different mitochondria. So they will have different looks because mitochondria is where the energy, as I told you, is an energy in all the cells. So the blood cells and all of these things, even looks. That's why you find we have white Jews, we have black Jews, we have Middle Eastern Jews, we have mixed mulatto Jews. It's a mixture. It's because of the mothers. And actually, genetically and mitochondrially speaking, Jewish men married from very many women. Yes. So that's why there is a lot of admixture in the Jewish nation. That's why Jews are scattered all over the world because women from different communities. Look at Solomon, he had 1,000 women. So just imagine, and all of these women came from different mitochondria. They had different groups. So basically, Solomon broadcast seed all over the world. Every nation, you could say most nations in the world, or a sixth of the nations of the world, because there are 6,000 languages in the world, carry Solomon's blood, or Solomon. If they have men in that culture, they have Jewish blood in them. So, and the masculine line, but the feminine line, many women are carrying. They were friends with the Jewish men. Now, so we've said Bilha mitochondria has 2 tribes called Dan and Naphtali. And then the third mitochondrial group is Zilpa. And she mitochondrially has 2 tribes called Gad and Asher. And then the fourth mitochondrial group is Asenath, the Egyptian wife of Joseph. And she, Ephraim and Manasseh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, of course, when you go to Israel, and till today, they sometimes don't do Manasseh to be tribes. Sometimes they consider them. Sometimes it is only the first sons of Jacob that are considered the tribes of Israel. Because if you add Ephraim and Manasseh to the 12 sons, those are 14. But when you read certain Bible verses and chapters, they call Ephraim a tribe. They call Manasseh a tribe. They call Benjamin a tribe. So Joseph is removed. So actually Israel even has 13 blood, has 13 tribes. Because when you remove Joseph out of the 12 sons, you have 11 sons. Then when you add Ephraim and Manasseh, which were tribes, they were truly tribes in Israel, then Israel actually has 13 tribes and not necessarily 12 tribes. So there's confusion amongst the writers of the Bible. They say the 12 tribes of Israel when there were actually 13. But because Jewish people like numbers, they like the number game, so they play around with it. They're very numerological. So to write 13 tribes looked like it was very confusing. But I think number 13 means something in Jewish theology. We'll find out. And so some people even say Paul was 13th apostle. Yes, because before Paul came in, the disciples, because I've told you, Jewish people they are very superstitious when it comes to numbers. So when they found there were 11 disciples, since Judas committed suicide, they needed to replace. So they got Matthias. And Matthias was the 12th disciple. But then Paul came in. And Paul was what? Sometimes Paul is called the 13th apostle. Now, the problem of Paul's presence is when you read Revelation, John says that the heaven is going to have 12 foundations. And each foundation will be in the name of the apostle. So people are wondering, where will Paul be? Since Paul worked harder than even Matthias. So some people say Paul actually replaced Matthias, and others say Paul will not be considered because he didn't walk with Jesus. Because Matthias saw Jesus. That's why he was considered. They had to pick amongst those who saw Jesus. Paul didn't see Jesus in the flesh. He just had visions that, and that's why he treated Paul like that. Paul was treated like an outsider. And if you read his letters, you can feel his rejection. He was rejected by the community because they wondered, this guy was persecuting us, now he's our friend. Let's give him a distance because we don't know what he's up to. But Paul went on with his life anyway, and he kept on calling himself an apostle. So some people call him the 13th apostle. Now what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that Israel actually has 13 tribes. Yeah, and not 12 tribes. Okay, guys, so we conclude there. There you are. 4 mitochondrial groups: the Leah Rachel, the Bilhah, the Zilpah, and the Asenath. These are the 4 mitochondria that made the nation of Israel. And what does that mean? That contrary to belief, these women, because they carry different mitochondria, they carry different diseases, they carry different traits, they carry different, like especially when you marry someone who is not from your mitochondria. Like Joseph married Asenath. She was an Egyptian. She was not a Syrian. So the mitochondria Joseph was carrying was not close to the one Asenath was carrying, which was Egyptian. So what does this mean? Ephraim and Manasseh, they look very different from the children who came from the Leah Rachel mitochondria. Same to those who are born with Bilhah and Zilpah. That's why I told you in the other video, when you have 20 children, 10 children, and they come from different mothers, some of them will look different from each other. And someone will say, how can you guys be brothers? And then you tell them, no, we share a father. The other says, no, we share a mother. Yeah, so that's what happens. This sharing of parents creates a lot of diversity in families. So it's very hard for you to understand a family that is motherly diverse or fatherly diverse, because it's possible some women have had 3 fathers and they stay with all the children they've got from those 3 men. So you just look at them and you see there's really very small commonalities, but a lot of very small similarities, but a lot of differences. But they are still the same. They share something in common, and that's what happens. That's why while it doesn't make sense to a simple mind. You can't really believe that, are we one? Yet we look so different. Yes, we look different because of the sharing. There's so much sharing. That's why diseases that are venereal are very hard to deal with, because we are always sharing. People are, this guy has gone to mix with this one who sleeps with this one who sleeps with that one who sleeps with that one. It's just a circle of connections. So we are one. And that's our genetics part 1. And it's the first time to see difference, mitochondrial differences in one family. And that's what Israel needs to understand today. That, they even, when they go and look for Jews, like what they did in Ethiopia, why did they go to the Ethiopia? Do you know why? Who was the Jew in the Ethiopian, in the Falasha Jews? It's not the woman, it's the man. It was Solomon. They are looking for the Y chromosome. But what Israel needs to know is that the Ethiopian women, especially Queen Sheba, she was carrying her mitochondria, which could have been an L. We are yet to see, or an N. We are yet to confirm what was her mitochondrial group. So that if you confirm her mitochondrial group, then it means that Falasha Jews carry a different mitochondria from Caucasian Jews that are in Israel. That's why when these Falasha Jews went to stay in Israel, there was a bit of animosity because number one, they look so different. These ones are Caucasian, they have Caucasian features, and then these ones are very African features. So, like they are slim and they are tall and everything. So uh, in Israel, if you, of course, I don't like talking about Israel so much because of the, politics. But if you go into the internal politics, they have that racism. They still have a problem with racism. It's because of the mitochondrial difference, but not necessarily the Y chromosome difference. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. That is science in religion, and it's beautiful. It is marvelous in our eyes.